Welcome to NarrativeNook where enchanted stories come to life. If you enjoy our stories, please subscribe, like and share to support our channel. Enjoy listening.
Cornelia struggled to rise from the floor, her wrists and ankles bound tightly, forcing her into the same kneeling position as Bernard and the others. This posture was clearly Serena's way of forcing them into submission. Wheeling her chair forward, Serena loomed over them as they knelt, tied to the pillars by her subordinates. The sight filled her with vindictive satisfaction, yet deep down, a trace of pity flickered. If only they had played fair, they wouldn't have fallen to such lows. Cornelia didn't resist. Instead, she looked up, her eyes filled with disappointment and disbelief. "Was it you who ordered us to be tied up?" Surprised? "Didn't see that coming." Serena smirked. "Don't worry, your precious granddaughter will come to save you soon. Do you know why I had you tied here instead of with your son and daughter-in-law? Because soon, I want to see who Arabella chooses to save first, you or her parents." She chuckled darkly, then added, "If she saves you, she'll have to watch her parents suffer. If she chooses them, then you'll be the one who suffers." Just the thought of her agony, her helplessness, the torment of being forced to choose, and still failing to protect everyone, only to watch one side die in front of her, that image thrills me. The thought filled Serena with twisted delight. "It'll be just like when I watched my own mother get pushed down the stairs. I want Arabella to feel that exact same torment." "So, you really want us to die?" Bernard asked quietly. Once, he had seen Serena as his granddaughter. Now, his heart was heavy with grief. He never imagined she could become so heartless so quickly. There was no saving her now. "My family is gone, so why should Arabella survive? I'm drowning in pain. Why should you all walk freely toward happiness? You never cared about me. None of you did. You all deserve to suffer. You all deserve to die." Serena screamed, her voice cracking as her body trembled with rage. Her eyes shimmered with tears of hatred. Bernard said nothing. His disappointment was beyond words. He refused to argue anymore. Cornelia turned her face away, convinced that Serena had completely lost her mind and that trying to reason with her was pointless. Their calm, silent expressions only enraged Serena further. She leaned in and sneered cruelly. "Your 5 beloved grandsons will also be arriving today, to die with you. Don't you love family reunions? Well, today the whole family can be together. In hell." She laughed uncontrollably, tears streaming down her face. Across the room, Louisa sensed something wasn't right. Serena had dared to summon the other 5 grandsons. How could she be so confident? The eldest and the others were all highly skilled, and with Arabella at their side. How could Serena possibly be so sure they'd all die here today? Had she planted explosives? Some kind of trap? If so, wouldn't that make it too dangerous for Arabella and the rest to walk into? Just then, Louisa's phone vibrated. Serena saw the screen light up. It displayed a name that pierced through her twisted heart. She ignored the call, changed the contact name spitefully, and only after the phone rang again did she answer. Leisurely. "I'm here," came Arabella's calm and steady voice from the other end. Arabella, standing before the decrepit hospital, didn't step in immediately. Her instincts told her this was a decoy. Something was off. "You've arrived at Hatton Hospital?" Serena asked gleefully. "Then come to the old mansion." Arabella's heart sank. She realized she had been deceived. "Where the hell are you? Can't keep your shirt on, can you?" Serena taunted. "The old mansion at the East Gate isn't the final stop either. But if you don't go there, I'll start killing your bodyguards, beginning with the youngest one." "I'll be there in 20 minutes. Arabella ended the call abruptly. "Ha ha ha ha." Serena cackled, overjoyed. So this is what true revenge feels like, utterly intoxicating. The thought of Arabella running around blindly, forced to obey every command, completely under her control. It made Serena's heart swell with glee. Just then, her private phone buzzed. It was a text from her network provider. Annoyed, she dialed back immediately, her voice edged with suspicion. "Why are you just getting in touch now?" It was chaos at the airport that night. Everyone was looking for me. Some even boarded the flight, so I stayed behind and laid low until things cooled off, came Stinger's cold, emotionless reply. Are you all right? I'm fine. Better than ever. Serena chuckled. Since that's the case, come help me out. I'll send you the location. She had full trust in Stinger. Her biological father, Eric, had once told her that he had 3 godsons she could always rely on: Stinger, Nighthawk, and Tyrannosaurus. Loyal to the death. After sending Stinger her coordinates, he silently forwarded the location to Arabella. Arabella, upon receiving it, saw that the destination was an abandoned church. She didn't rush in. Instead, she ordered her henchman, Jack, to set up an ambush there. Then she alerted her trusted ally Romeo, before continuing toward the old mansion. She quickly noticed several cars tailing her. They were Serena's men, but she didn't care. Let them follow. Elsewhere, Tyrannosaurus received an update from his subordinate. He relayed it to Serena. She's still heading to the old mansion. And she's alone. Are you sure she's alone? Serena pressed, knowing Arabella's cunning all too well. Yes. She drove to Hatton Hospital by herself, stayed in the car while making the call. No sidekicks spotted the entire time. Serena's lips curled into a wicked grin. Oh, Arabella, still so proud, so self-assured. But times have changed. Today, your arrogance will cost you dearly. With venom in her voice, she commanded, release one of them. Let my dear grandparents and parents see what's waiting for their precious daughter and their 5 beloved sons. Right away. Tyrannosaurus obeyed. Bernard, Cornelia, Kenneth, and Louisa braced themselves, anxiety knotting in their stomachs. But what emerged wasn't human. It was a grotesque, greenish-skinned mutant, a monster. Start with the youngest bodyguard, Serena said coolly, as if discussing the weather. Tyrannosaurus unbound the young man from the rest and shoved him toward the creature, Chester. The boy, still tied and gagged, struggled, grunting and writhing. His muffled cries were filled with fear and rage. Cut him loose and take that rag out of his mouth. It'll be far more entertaining that way, Serena said indifferently. Tyrannosaurus sliced through the ropes and removed the gag. But the young bodyguard didn't cower. His first breath of freedom wasn't for pleading, it was for vengeance. With a roar, he lunged at Serena, intent on avenging his fallen comrades, especially his chief. Kill him, Serena ordered coldly. This command seemed to flip a switch in Chester. As if awakened, he surged forward with terrifying strength, grabbed the young bodyguard, and hurled him against the window. Glass shattered into shards as the bodyguard crashed through, landing in the splinters below. He writhed in pain, unable to get back on his feet. Kenneth and the others were in utter disbelief. Chester had lifted a full-grown man above his head and thrown him through a window that stood 6 feet off the ground. The shock on their faces was sweet vindication for Serena. From the moment she captured them, this was the first time their expressions cracked with real fear. Serena, Bella is following the path you gave her. You promised not to hurt this bodyguard, Cornelia said. But before she could finish, Chester grabbed the young man again like a rag doll and began to pummel his stomach with brutal, machine-like punches. Each blow landed with sickening force. The bodyguard coughed up blood, powerless against the relentless assault. Chester showed no emotion. Like a robot in overdrive, twisting the man's arms and snapping them with his bare hands. The sickening crunch of bones filled the room. The young man screamed in agony, then finally collapsed into unconsciousness. Kenneth and the others were horrified. They had never imagined such terrifying power in one man. Enough, Serena, make him stop. Louisa screamed, that bodyguard did nothing wrong. It's us you want revenge on. But Serena, seeing the fear, panic and helplessness on their faces, only smiled. No. Every single one of the Collins family deserves to die, she said coldly. Chester then slammed his fist into the bodyguard's forehead repeatedly. Blood gushed from his head and ears. With one final twist, Chester snapped his neck cleanly. He walked over to Serena, standing still, awaiting his next command. Well done. You may go, Serena said with a satisfied smile. watching Kenneth and the others reel from what they had just witnessed. They had watched the young man be beaten to death in under a minute. As his lifeless body was dragged away, his broken limbs dangled grotesquely. Chester's cruelty was inhuman. The captive's thoughts turned to Bella and her 5 brothers. What horrors awaited them? Tears welled in Cornelia's eyes. She couldn't help but feel that the Collins family had brought this calamity upon this innocent boy. He had always been such a clever, likable young man. And now... "Serena, please stop," Bernard pleaded, voice trembling. "Have you forgotten how my family cared for you when you were a child? You have no right to talk about my childhood." Serena suddenly exploded. "If you could treat me so well back then, why can't you do the same now? Why did everything change the moment Arabella came back?" They could have continued loving and valuing her as they once did in childhood, but they chose not to. In the end, it was always about favoring their own flesh and blood. Bella suffered outside for 18 years. What's wrong with us wanting to make it up to her? Bernard said, his voice heavy with pain. Are we supposed to neglect her and be kind only to you? Is that your idea of fairness? You shower her with 100 candies and toss just a few my way. Is that fair? Serena cried out, anguish cracking her voice. Just because you think she's never tasted candy before, you want to compensate her with everything at once. But because I had some in the past, you give me scraps, thinking I should be satisfied, grateful even. That I shouldn't feel the sting of loss, right? Bernard looked at her with deep disappointment. In the past, you had more than 100 candies. You grew up carefree and happy, never worrying about food or clothing. Bella, on the other hand, was at the mercy of strangers, surviving hardship. You were the beloved one, pampered and protected. Bella had no one. You entered high society through our family's help. She climbed her way up, inch by her own hard work. He continued, his voice filled with sorrow. We owe her so much. And yet you think giving her 100 candies is too much? Serena fell silent. Or do you think she should have never come back? That we should treat you, someone with no blood relation, as our own? Would that have been fair to you? His words seemed to pierce Serena's heart. They echoed her darkest, most hidden thoughts. For a moment, she said nothing. Then, at last, she whispered coldly, "It doesn't matter what you say now. I gave you a chance, and you didn't cherish it. Since you're so eager to make it up to her, then go to hell and do it there." She pressed a button on her wheelchair to turn and leave, but paused, a sinister smile playing on her lips. "Oh, and those Chesters," she added mockingly. "She's dealt with them before. But this time, she's facing the upgraded version. I do hope she lasts a while. Otherwise, it won't be any fun." With those words, Serena rolled away, visibly pleased with herself. The remaining few stood frozen, their teeth clenched in anger. "Serena." One of them growled through gritted teeth. Meanwhile, at the old mansion near the east gate, Arabella had just arrived. Serena had instructed her to head to the nearby church. By the time she got there, Arabella and Romeo's men had already surrounded the area. As Arabella pulled up to the church entrance, her headlights illuminated 2 familiar figures. Cookie, the young bodyguard, and Amos, the chief of security, lying motionless on the ground. The harsh beam of the car's headlights cast long, eerie shadows over their bodies. Arabella stepped out and rushed over. She bent down beside Cookie, only to see his hands and feet were visibly broken. His forehead was caved in from blunt force trauma. Blood trickled from his head and ears. It was clear, whoever had done this had used bare hands to deliver the devastating blows. They had even twisted his neck. What kind of monstrous strength did it take to inflict that kind of damage? Then she turned to look at Amos. His death was even more gruesome. After a long, tense silence, Arabella rose to her feet and walked steadily toward the church. Lurking in the shadows, Jack whispered to his men, "When we leave, you two bring Amos and Cookie into the car. The boss wants to give them a grand funeral." "Jack, how did you know?" one of the men asked, surprised. They had indeed seen the boss linger silently by the 2 bodies, without uttering a word or even glancing their way. How had Jack picked up on her intentions? How did he know to retrieve the bodies for a proper farewell? "This is called tacit understanding," Jack said proudly, proud of the unique bond he had developed with the boss over the years. Arabella stepped into the dilapidated church. It was hollow and desolate, clearly abandoned long ago, with dust cloaking every surface. Faint light filtered through the cracked stained glass windows, casting a grim glow. Overhead, a grand chandelier swayed gently in the draught, and flickering wall sconces cast dancing shadows along the stone pillars. At the center, a few steps led up to the altar, and there sat Serena, elevated in her wheelchair, flanked by her henchmen. A smug grin curved her lips as she looked down. "You've come," she said. About 5 meters away from the altar, Arabella's grandparents were bound to a pillar on the left. Nearby, 3 of her bodyguards were tied up as well. On the right, her parents were restrained against another pillar. A narrow aisle ran between them. Arabella's eyes darkened at the sight of them, all on their knees, hands and feet tied behind them. "Bella, get out of here. She's gone mad," Cornelia urged anxiously. "She's got help." They twisted Cookie's limbs and neck in seconds, broke them all. "Amos's guts were even pulled out," Louisa added, panicked. "Don't worry about us. Just go." Seeing his daughter standing alone in the face of such danger, Kenneth's eyes turned red. "Bella, please. Just leave," he pleaded. His daughter had already sacrificed far too much for their sake. "Good child. Leave this place," Bernard choked out. His voice trembled with emotion, as if this were a final goodbye. The thought that he might never see his granddaughter walk down the aisle in a beautiful wedding gown filled him with regret and sorrow. His eyes were heavy with reluctance and love. The bodyguards, gagged with cloth, let out muffled pleas for Arabella to escape. Their terrified expressions said enough. They had witnessed something horrific. They didn't want her to face it alone. Suddenly, the church doors slammed shut behind her, sealing the space in even deeper shadows. Arabella didn't flinch. Instead, her gaze hardened as she looked up at the people by the altar. "You broke your promise." Cookie had been innocent. Serena had said that if Arabella came here alone, Cookie would be spared. But Cookie had still been brutally killed. "Just 2 bodyguards dead, and you're already upset?" Serena said with a cruel smile. "Soon, it'll be your whole family." Then she laughed softly, almost playfully. "It's been a while since we sisters had a face-to-face chat. Today, we'll talk to our heart's content." "Release them first," Arabella commanded, her voice as cool and detached as ever. Serena's smile vanished, replaced by a venomous glare, like a storm gathering with thunderous rage. "You dare to bargain with me now? Open your eyes and look closely. Those bound here are your grandparents, your parents. And soon, your 5 brothers will join them in death." As the thought crossed her mind, Serena's twisted smile returned. "You still have a chance to beg for mercy." Arabella curled her lips into a mocking smirk. "Beg for mercy? For a quick death?" She scoffed. "Well, that's not guaranteed," Serena replied, her laughter growing more jubilant. "But if I'm in a good mood, I might make their deaths quick." Arabella's gaze shifted toward her grandparents. Only 2 men were guarding them, one named Stinger, the other unknown. Probably mediocre in skill. "Don't even think of playing tricks," Serena said, as if reading her thoughts. She chuckled darkly. "I'm confident enough to leave just 2 guards because none of you will escape today." "You're quite confident," Arabella said flatly. Her expression remained unchanged. "So, what do you want to talk about?" Showing no urgency to save her family, she stood casually, staring up at Serena's elevated position on the altar. "When you first left me with the Collins family, was it to outshine me, or just a performance for your family? To make them think you were kind and selfless?" Serena spat. Under normal circumstances, Arabella wouldn't have dignified such a foolish question. But today, she answered with rare patience. "I just didn't want to break my family's heart. They lived with you for 18 years. There had to be some bond." If she'd returned and immediately cast Serena out, her parents might have kept silent, but they would have felt sorrow. That's human nature. "So, for that, you allowed me to stay in the family?" Treated me as your equal, as a Collins lady? Serena asked, incredulous. Otherwise? Arabella met her gaze directly. Not everyone fusses over petty things. Whether you're here or not, whatever designer clothes or jewelry you wear, it doesn't affect me. As long as my parents are happy, I don't mind them having one more daughter. And now you're still lying? Serena narrowed her eyes. Would you swear on your family's lives that everything you just said is true? Why wouldn't I? Arabella answered calmly. Her words rang sincere. Half convinced, half skeptical, Serena pressed further. If that were true, why have you opposed me at every turn? Isn't it you who's been opposing me since the day I returned? Arabella countered. Did you show any kindness at all? The question irked Serena. So you're saying I never cared? Back when you were at Westerly College, didn't I try to reconnect? Didn't I realize my mistakes and try to reach out? You were the one who rejected me, who shut the door on my sincerity. If not for you, how could our family have fallen apart like this? I've told you before, Arabella said, voice steady. You don't need to please me. Just live peacefully in the family, and you can stay. I don't care about whatever emotional or financial investments my parents made in you. As long as Serena played fair and didn't scheme behind her back, Arabella didn't mind her presence. You're the one who let whispers poison your mind. You act irrationally, sane one moment, unhinged the next. How dare you call my mother's words slander? Serena snapped, trembling with rage. You have no idea how much I regret not listening to her. Not listening to her? While the Collins family still loved and trusted you, you planned to use them as a stepping stone to marry into an even richer household, didn't you? Serena's eyes widened in shock. How did Arabella know what her birth mother had said? While the family still adored and trusted you, Arabella continued, you aimed to drain everything you could from them to elevate your own status. Or maybe, you were just waiting for the right moment, to kill me, reclaim your throne of admiration, and bask again in the spotlight of unrivaled glory. Arabella's words left nothing to refute. Indeed, it was Martha who had raised Serena, and Arabella had only spoken the truth. But Serena had always been wavering, torn between what she was taught and what she truly felt. I regret letting her raise you, Louisa, bound to a pillar, lamented with a heavy heart. If it weren't for her, maybe there would still be hope for you. Once upon a time, Serena had been as pure and innocent as a blank canvas, untouched by the world. It was Martha who had poisoned her ears, fanning the flames of deceit. Combined with Serena's shifting mindset, it had led her down a path of no return. If only they, her parents, had noticed in time, maybe things would have turned out differently. It wasn't that they were clinging to Serena just because she was their daughter. They were mourning the loss of a kind soul who had been led astray. And the cost was simply too high. Can you swear that everything you just said is the truth? Serena asked Arabella, her emotions wavering. Arabella's gaze remained calm and unwavering. I've already sworn it. If you don't believe me, what more can I say? Serena wanted to believe, but all she could manage was a bitter smile. There's no going back. It's all irreversible. It was too late. Everything was far too late. Now confined to a wheelchair, Serena's life had taken a dark, irreversible turn. Rest assured, tonight's blaze will be a grand farewell for you, she said coldly, signaling to her subordinate, who immediately understood and released the 8 Chesters. That was when Arabella finally understood why Serena had been so confident today. It was because of them, the Chesters. Eric had once been a minor leader within one of Doom's factions, so it wasn't surprising that he had access to the Chesters. But how had he managed to control them? Even after his death, they obeyed Serena's commands. How had he accomplished that? Good luck, Serena said flatly, then gave the order, kill the ones tied to the pillars. She was curious. Who would Arabella try to save? The 8 Chesters seemed to understand instantly and began advancing toward the bound figures. Arabella sprang into action, aiming a fierce kick at the lead Chester, who blocked it with his arm. Only then did Arabella realize, Chester's arms were abnormally strong. Her powerful kick made him take just a single step back. Usually, anyone she struck like that would double over or stumble several steps. She followed up with a spinning roundhouse kick. This time, the Chester staggered back a bit more. But still, as if nothing had happened, he resumed walking toward the prisoners, completely unfazed. Serena's subordinates who were guarding the hostages were about to retreat when Arabella lunged at one of them, snatched his knife, and plunged it decisively into the top of Chester's head. Atop the altar, Serena chuckled, as though Arabella's efforts were pitifully futile. This Chester is an upgraded version. Striking the top of the head won't work, she said with amusement. In short, that wasn't their weak point anymore. As two Chesters advanced with mechanical strides toward Kenneth and Louisa, Arabella sprang into action. She shoved one of them back several steps and quickly slashed through the ropes binding her parents. No sooner were Kenneth and Louisa freed than 3 more Chesters marched toward her grandparents, while another trio headed for the bodyguards tied to the pillars. Arabella couldn't possibly save everyone at once. Thankfully, Stinger spotted Bernard and Cornelia, swiftly cut their ropes, and pulled them to safety behind him. Because the Chesters were programmed to kill Bernard and the others, they didn't recognize Stinger as a threat, assuming he was one of their own. Arabella seized the moment to dash to the 3 bodyguards and cut their ropes with swift, clean strokes. Now standing side by side, Arabella and Stinger shielded everyone behind them. Serena's face twisted in fury and disbelief. "Stinger, you dare betray me?" Stinger looked up at her coldly. "4 years, I served your father with loyalty, risking my life for his every command. But behind closed doors, he tormented my parents, treating them worse than animals until they died in disgrace. Tell me, Serena, who should I settle the score with?" Serena's brows furrowed. "Has Arabella been feeding you lies? She's trying to turn you against me. My father would never do such a thing." "Her words are far more credible than yours," Stinger replied sharply, and then charged toward the altar. Enraged, Serena barked, "If that's how it is, then you can all go to hell together." She ordered Tyrannosaurus and Nighthawk to deal with Stinger, and then commanded the 8 Chesters, "Kill them." The Chesters activated instantly and advanced again, mechanical and relentless. "Bella, run. I'll hold them off, please," Louisa cried, gripping Arabella's clothes in desperation. Kenneth stepped in front of his daughter, his voice shaking. "Forget about us." He knew that even a few seconds of resistance could give Arabella enough time to escape. But Arabella shielded them with her arms, stepping back slowly like an eagle guarding her young. They couldn't win in direct combat. These upgraded Chesters were too strong. A frontal assault would be suicide. The key was finding their weak spot. If not the head, then where? 2 Chesters lunged at Arabella, while the other 6 targeted her family and the bodyguards. Arabella struggled to hold them back, the onslaught too overwhelming. She was being pushed to the limit, trying to protect everyone at once. One Chester grabbed Kenneth by the shirt, preparing to hurl him, just as Arabella broke free from the one in front of her. She spun around and launched a kick that sent the Chester flying several meters before it crashed to the ground. "Bella!" Her family cried out, rushing toward her. But Cornelia, slower than the others, was grabbed by one of the Chesters. Arabella, lying on the floor, finally grasped the horrific pain Cookie and Amos must have endured before their deaths. A crushing blow struck her stomach. It was unlike anything she'd felt before. Yet, even as she watched her grandmother being lifted into the air to be used as a weapon, Arabella surged forward with impossible speed. She caught her grandmother mid-air and managed to toss her to safety. "Mom! Bella!" Louisa screamed, running toward them in a panic, her face pale with terror. Cornelia was hurled with such force by Chester that Arabella was knocked to the ground again. Guilt and worry surged through Cornelia as she struggled to lift her aching body off her beloved Arabella, but her limbs refused to cooperate. Bernard and Kenneth reached out to help her up. But there was no time to catch their breath. 8 more Chesters were already closing in fast. Arabella quickly pressed a button on her watch to alert Jack and the others, then sprang up to fight off the attackers. Meanwhile, Stinger dashed toward the altar, hell-bent on finishing Serena. But Serena wasn't alone. Tyrannosaurus and Nighthawk stood at her side. Though Stinger had battered them earlier, they remained unmoved, like emotionless machines programmed to protect her. My parents were killed by Eric. Who knows? Maybe your families were too. Are you really going to throw your lives away for her? Stinger shouted, trying to pierce their loyalty. But his words bounced off their silence. Tyrannosaurus and Nighthawk stood firm, a wall of steel shielding Serena. She's going down today. Do you really want to go down with her? Stinger roared again, but they didn't flinch. Suddenly, the church doors burst open. Romeo and Jack charged in with reinforcements. Serena's face twisted with rage. Arabella, you dare bring backup? She spat, her voice venomous. Fine. If you all want to escort her to the grave, then you'll meet your maker today. With a furious press of a button, Serena sealed the doors behind them. From every direction, more Chesters appeared. Their numbers swelled to over 20. Kill them, she ordered coldly, and her mechanical army advanced. Romeo, Jack, and their 100 men drew their weapons and opened fire, but the Chesters didn't even flinch. The bullets were useless against their reinforced bodies, like they were made of iron and copper. One by one, the bodyguards were snatched up by Chesters and hurled against pillars and windows. In a blink, over 20 men had fallen. Find a chance to get my family out first, Arabella ordered Jack, who was battling by her side. Don't worry, boss. Leave it to me. Jack replied, launching a kick at a Chester, only to be grabbed and flung aside like a ragdoll. Just as Arabella turned, 4 Chesters lunged at her. Romeo intercepted 2, Arabella blocked 1, and the last was stopped by a sudden arrival wolf. Help Jack get my family to safety, Arabella commanded. Understood. Wolf replied without hesitation, rushing toward Kenneth and driving the Chesters back with brute force. A Chester reached Louisa, who, paralyzed by fear, grabbed a nearby fan and swung it wildly, eyes squeezed shut. To her horror, it did nothing. The Chester grabbed her by the clothes, ready to lift her into the air. A scream caught in her throat, until Jack arrived just in time, saving her from being slammed into a pillar. The situation was dire. Their numbers had been halved. The Chesters were still unscathed. Boss, we can't keep this up, Jack gasped, drenched in sweat and panting. These things are too strong. Even I can barely hold on. And your body isn't built for this. Arabella watched the encroaching Chesters with caution, still uncertain of their weakness. She had already tried stabbing at their temples, hearts, stomachs. Nothing worked. The knife had no effect on them. Take the grandparents and leave first. I'll cover your retreat with my men, Romeo said to the girl beside him as the Chesters closed in. You can't handle them alone, Arabella replied, knowing full well that even Jack and the others were no match for these monsters, let alone Romeo by himself. He was trying to buy them time. She feared it might cost him his life. Just do as I say. Romeo's blade slashed swiftly at a Chester's arm, but from shoulder to wrist, its skin remained completely unscathed, like some lifeless, invincible automaton. More and more bodyguards fell. There was nowhere left to retreat. The main doors were sealed shut. Their guns had run out of bullets. The windows stood 2 meters high, too high to reach. Just then, Tyrannosaurus launched Stinger across the room with a vicious kick. He slammed into a pillar and crumpled to the floor, coughing up blood. Ha 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 ha. Serena cackled, drunk on the sight of her fallen enemies. I told you. All of you are going to die here today. Stinger couldn't get up. His vision blurred. He looked toward the altar, where Arabella stood cornered by nearly 20 Chesters. She was far away now. His body was weak. His thirst for vengeance faded. In his mind, he drifted back to a childhood memory, boating on the lake in the park with his parents. He yearned to see their faces one last time. His consciousness flickered between clarity and darkness. The Chesters moved in to strike Arabella and the others when, suddenly, wait. Serena's voice rang out like a gunshot. The Chesters froze mid-step, as if someone had pressed a pause button. Romeo, Serena called out, eyes gleaming. If you don't want her to die a gruesome death, marry me. Marry you. Romeo sneered. And you'll spare everyone here? Serena laughed. Of course not. If you agree to tie the knot, I might spare her life, but the rest? They're doomed. You wouldn't even spare those who were once your family? Romeo shot a glance at Bernard and the others. They deserve to die, Serena said flatly. If Arabella wasn't the leverage she needed to force Romeo into obedience, Serena would have had her killed already. You dare come near me? Romeo's lips curled in warning. Did she think he wouldn't kill her on the spot? But Serena only blushed coyly. Unless it's our wedding night, you won't lay a hand on me. She was confident. Tyrannosaurus, Nighthawk, and the Chesters were all by her side. You're dreaming, Arabella snapped, furious. She hadn't expected Serena to still be obsessed with Romeo, to such a twisted, possessive degree. Then, seizing the opportunity while the Chesters were frozen, Arabella dashed forward with lightning speed toward the altar. Bella. Romeo started to follow, but hesitated. If the Chesters reactivated, Jack and the others might be overwhelmed. The entire Collins family would be in danger. Serena misread Arabella's move. She thought Arabella was charging in to kill her. But to everyone's surprise, Arabella rushed not at Serena, but toward Stinger, who lay bleeding 5 or 6 meters away. She crouched down and tried to lift him up. Serena narrowed her eyes and subtly signaled Tyrannosaurus. He instantly stepped forward to block their escape.
If you have enjoyed this story, please like and share so others can see it too. Also hit the subscription button and notification bell so you can be notified on our next release. Thank you for your support. God bless you.